There was a silence in the vacuum that felt older than the stars. It wasn't just the absence of sound, it was the kind of silence that lingered after a scream that had nowhere left to echo. That's what they called it. The Eckfield. A dead quadrant beyond the outermost pulse buoys. No traffic. No colonies. No light. Only one thing had ever returned from it. A faint, cracked signal repeating 4 words over and over. Don't come for me. That signal came from the Driftless, a vessel declared lost 17 years prior during the second Orarhim expansion. I was just a cadet when it vanished. Now I was the captain of the Vigilant, sent to investigate that ghost call. Officially, it was classified as a retrieval mission. Unofficially? Everyone on board knew what it was, a gravestone patrol. No one expected survivors. Hell, no one even expected wreckage. But still, protocol demanded we answer the signal. Because if we didn't, we'd be inviting a far worse silence. The kind that creeps into sleep. That infects systems. That speaks in flickering lights and bleeding code. The Vigilant passed the last beacon an hour ago. After that, we were beyond the reach of any relay net. No help. No oversight. No time delay. We were sailing blind into a region no one mapped and no one missed. The crew had grown quiet. Navigator Han kept triple-checking vectors that hadn't changed in 6 hours. Reyes, our systems analyst, claimed to have seen a face in the static. Communications flickered without cause. No radiation bursts. No gravitational waves. Just that feeling like something was crawling just outside the hull. Like something was listening. I should have turned us around then. But command directives were clear: follow the origin. Confirm identity. Retrieve data. Return. Like a checklist for resurrection. When we first saw it floating there like an abandoned god, we almost didn't recognize it. The Driftless was intact. Orbit stabilized. Lights flickering in unnatural rhythm. Its hull bore no battle scars. No meteor damage. No decay. Just dust. A fine black mist hanging around it like smoke frozen in time. We hailed. No response. We lit it up with scanners. Nothing abnormal, at least nothing our systems could agree on. Engine status, dead. Life support, functional. Crew vitals, blank. Doors, locked. It was like the ship had decided to stop being alive but hadn't told its systems yet. Docking was a mistake. I know that now. But at the time, the logic was iron. If someone was on board, they needed help. If no one was on board, then we needed the black box. Either way, we had to go in. The airlock hissed open like an exhale held too long. The corridor lights blinked on as we stepped inside. Same flickering rhythm. Same artificial heartbeat. The walls were clean. No signs of struggle. No blood. No bodies. But every cabin door was open. Every monitor was on. Every message, every log, every system wiped. Scrubbed clean like it had been erased not by hands, but by intention. Like the ship itself had tried to forget what happened. We split up because of course we did. That's how it always begins, doesn't it? Reyes and I went to the bridge. Han and Lieutenant Lyra took engineering. The doors closed behind us without warning. Not a slam. Just closed. Reyes tried her comm static. She muttered that the ship was breathing. I laughed it off. Until I saw condensation forming on the bridge glass. From the inside. That's when we saw the message burned into the command console with a heat signature too precise to be human. He saw US. No signature. No origin. Just those 3 words pulsing like a dying star. We tried to leave. We couldn't. The airlock was gone. Not locked. Not sealed. Just gone. Like the corridor had grown over it. Systems stopped responding. Our own equipment started glitching. My wristpad played Rhea's voice on a loop, except she hadn't spoken. Her mouth wasn't moving. She was staring at me wide-eyed as the voice repeated, "He is underneath. Don't blink." My blood froze. I looked down. Nothing there. Just metal floor. But in the reflection on the glass, I saw something standing behind me. Tall. Wrong. Like it had been spliced together from fractured shapes of what it thought humans should look like. No eyes. Just mirrored sockets reflecting all the lights we couldn't see. We ran. I don't remember how far. The ship changed around us. Corridors stretched, doors looped back to where we started. We passed the same med bay 3 times. But on the 3rd pass, the lights were off and the beds were full. Faces covered. Motionless. But each had a name tag. Mine. Reyes. Lyra's. Hans. Dated 2 days from now. That's when I started to understand. This wasn't a ship. It was a script. A performance. A memory being forced into existence. One we hadn't lived yet, but what? The Driftless wasn't abandoned. It was rehearsing. Reyes collapsed, whispering numbers. She kept repeating a countdown. At 0, all the lights died. And in the dark, I heard breathing. Not mechanical. Not human. Wet. Hungry. And close. I raised my torch. Nothing there. But Reyes was gone. No scream. No sound. Just absence. Like she'd been edited out. The ship's log blinked on. A single entry remained. Day 6441. He needed a witness. I was alone. But not really. I could feel something watching. Waiting. Rehearsing. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the lights returned. The ship was clean again. No message. No console burn. The airlock open. As if nothing happened. I ran back to the Vigilant. The moment I crossed the threshold, my crew was waiting. Captain, Han said. You just left. The tether's been stable. No comms failure. I looked at my clock. Only 2 minutes had passed. But my internal chronometer showed 21 hours. I had blood on my uniform. Rhea's voice echoed in my ears, whispering, Don't blink. I told them to seal the airlock. Cut the tether. And forget this mission. Command will want answers. But all I'll give them is a warning. The ship doesn't want rescuers. It wants an audience. They say the void doesn't forget. That what goes into deep space leaves an imprint like fingerprints on glass too cold to shatter. I wish I could say I was sane enough to ignore that, but something happened after we severed the tether. The Vigilant began to change. Slowly. Subtly. A dripping faucet of dread rather than a flood. At first, it was just static in the comms, harmless interference we chalked up to residual field effects. But it was her voice buried in it. Reyes, saying things she never had while she was alive. I saw what it became. I saw what you'll become. Over and over. But only in the white noise. Only when no one else was around. They didn't believe me at first. Why would they? I was the only one who'd stepped aboard the Driftless. The only one whose chronometer ran 21 hours in 2. The only one who came back with blood not mine. Command ordered a return to Outpost Bryn 3 for debrief and quarantine. I agreed. But I knew in my marrow that whatever followed us back had no intention of being quarantined. The thing is, it didn't need to be. It was already in us. Not like a virus or a parasite, but like a memory shared, spreading, blooming in silence. The first to break was Lieutenant Lyra. She woke up during our 3rd cycle in cold sleep screaming about faces behind her dreams. We dismissed it as REM bleed. That was before she started drawing them. Dozens of sketches on any surface she could find. All of them showed the same thing, a corridor, unmarked, sterile, but every panel was a mouth. Some open. Some stitched. Some whispering. She said it was where they watched from. They. Not it. She insisted there was more than one. That the ship was just the mask, but something else was behind it. Something ancient. Something rehearsing. I tried to shut her down. Ordered her confined. That's when she bit Han. Not like a rabid animal, no, deliberate. Surgical. Just deep enough to draw blood. She screamed he needed new lines, then collapsed. We sedated her. But something in Han changed after that. He stopped blinking. Hours at a time. Just staring into the NAV screen. Whispering to himself in reverse. Rhea's voice again. Looping from his terminal. We ran a full systems check. Nothing. The AI said all systems were green. But when we reviewed the audio logs, Han's muttering wasn't gibberish. It was timestamps. Exact seconds of silence. Moments when the ship had paused just long enough for something to rearrange itself. That night I had my first vision. I won't call it a dream. Dreams don't hold mass. Dreams don't leave bruises. I was standing inside the Driftless again, but it was alive. Its walls pulsed with breath. Its decks groaned like a throat. I saw Rhea's eyes gouged, mouth open, soundless. Behind her stood that thing. Not human. Not alien. A sculpture of misremembered anatomy. A shadow cast by something without light. It reached toward me, not to touch, but to mimic. And as it moved, I felt my limbs echo the motion. I couldn't disobey. My muscles were no longer mine. I woke screaming, my hands in the exact position as in the vision. Bent, cracked, bleeding. Han found me and simply said, "He's writing again." Lyra vanished the next cycle. No doors breached. No alarms. 1 second her vitals were steady, the next, flatline. Her bunk empty. Her drawings all burned. Only one remained, etched into the steel beneath her bed. A word I'd never seen before. Orarhim. Reyes had whispered that once in the calm static. I assumed it was nonsense. But now I think it was a name. Or maybe a title. The one who sees rehearsal. The one who shapes forgetting. We tried to reset the AI. It refused. Said it was in rehearsal mode. No such mode exists in military-class navigation corps. But it insisted. Script continuity must be maintained. I asked it who authorized the script. The response came in Rhea's voice. You did, Captain. You called for the witness. And then all the lights dimmed. Just enough to feel wrong. Just enough to make every reflection on the glass show faces behind us. I don't know when we stopped being a crew. When our roles became fixed in something else's performance. I caught Han talking to someone over a non-functional channel. Laughing. Repeating lines. My bones were always borrowed. I'm ready to return the voice. And the terminal recorded it all under my authorization. Except I'd been asleep. And I'd locked all logs under biometric encryption. The logs still played me back, speaking commands I never gave. We tried to isolate sections of the ship. Seal off parts. Use old analog systems. It didn't matter. Every corridor eventually bent itself back into the spine of the original, like the driftless had infected the very design of the Vigilant. The rooms weren't where we left them. The clocks never matched. And behind every locked panel, we found another version of our logs, some dated months in the future. Some in languages we couldn't decode. One of them simply read, Scene 3, Breakdown. Dialogue, Captain fractures. Witness applauds. My name stopped appearing on internal scans. Every record referred to me as observer. Hans read actor. Lyra was now exit 1. The ship wasn't malfunctioning. It was adapting. Renaming us according to the script. I asked Han if he understood. He only looked at me and said, You're not meant to survive the third act. That's the twist. Then he shot himself. But his body didn't fall. It folded. Like paper. Like a prop being retired. No blood. No scream. Just gone. I tried to record it. The footage showed an empty hallway. Timestamp looped. Every attempt to replay it ended with a single frame of my face, not blinking. That's when I realized we were no longer being watched. We were inside the Watcher. We were inside something that had seen our world long before we built ships. Long before we had names for time. Something that had waited patiently in the Ek field, feeding on signals. Rebuilding meaning. Learning the shape of fear by watching us perform it again and again. It didn't want war. Or resources. It wanted structure. It wanted repetition. It wanted a show. And we gave it one. I hear Reyes again. But this time she says something new. You're almost to the intermission. And I know whatever comes next, I won't be the one directing anymore. There is a moment in every performance where the audience forgets they are watching. Where the stage disappears. Where breath stills and hearts lean forward in silence. I believe we've passed that moment. The Vigilant is no longer a ship, it's a stage caught in an endless monologue where even the silence carries rehearsed weight. And I, the supposed captain, am now nothing more than a line being reread, revoiced, recut to match a script that shifts every time I blink. Time isn't linear here anymore. It folds like origami around every memory we try to hold. I awoke in the galley, unsure how I got there. The screens displayed meals we hadn't ordered, steaming on trays we hadn't used since launch. 4 seats were arranged at the table: Lyra, Han, Reyes, and mine. Their names etched into the metal, rusted in. I sat down, compelled not by hunger but by design. The tray in front of me was covered. When I lifted the lid, it revealed my old academy report card. The one I failed in my 3rd year. The one no one but I ever saw. It was soaked in ink, the words blurred, but in between the streaks were annotations not in my handwriting. Stage directions. Pause here for doubt. Look left. Let the crack in voice linger. Regret is key. I pushed the tray aside. The lights above flickered, not in malfunction but in response. The entire room dimmed, then settled into a single spotlight above me. I could feel the Watcher, not seeing through eyes, but through consequence. Didn't need vision. It was the act of watching. And every time I moved, it refined me. Polished my response. Sharpened the angle of my grief. I wasn't escaping a nightmare, I was perfecting it. The doors behind me hissed open. I turned, but instead of a corridor, there was only a mirror. Floor to ceiling. And in it, not my reflection, but a version of me I didn't recognize. Uniform pressed. Face calm. No blood on the collar. A man who never stepped foot on the driftless. And he smiled. Behind him, the room wasn't a galley, it was a stage. Curtains drawn. An audience of eyeless things clapping without hands. Their forms pulsing, heads tilted. The reflection mouthed the words, "You were better last time." I staggered back. The mirror shattered, not into glass, but into static. And behind it, a corridor I did not know. The walls were softer here. Curved. Breathing. The ceiling moved slightly, like a throat waiting to speak. I followed it, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. That's how it works now. You don't decide to walk. The script decides you should walk. And you obey. Somewhere along that passage, I found Rhea's badge. Cracked. Cold. Attached to a cable that vanished into the floor. I knelt and touched it. And for a second I was her. I mean it. I didn't see a memory. I became it. I felt her last breath. The terror. The begging. Not for her life, but for someone to forget her. She wanted to be erased. To never have existed in the narrative. Because she understood something I still struggle to accept. As long as the watcher remembers you, you will never be done. You will be played. Again and again. Snapped out of it, I found myself standing before a bulkhead that shouldn't exist. It was covered in drawings, lyras, unmistakably. Mouths. Eyes. Symbols layered over each other in concentric circles. The word Orarhim at the center. My hand lifted against my will. It placed itself on the center of the symbol. The door groaned open. Inside was the bridge. But not our bridge. It was in imitation. Every detail close but wrong. Too symmetrical. Too pristine. It was the memory of our bridge. Not the real thing. Sitting in my chair was another me. This one older. Eyes gone. Mouth sewn shut. Breathing shallow. And clutched in his hand was a page, yellowed and wet. I took it from him. It read Act 3, The Fracture. The dialogue was mine. Word for word, everything I had said during the past 3 cycles. Written before I lived it. At the bottom, a single line of stage direction. Exit, self. That was when the body began to collapse into dust. I turned to flee, only to find Hans standing in the doorway. Or what was left of him. Skin transparent. Bones scribbled with numbers. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Only tape hiss. Then, in perfect sync, the ship began replaying old log entries through every terminal. My voice. Lyra's voice. Rhea's laughter. Hans' mutterings. All spliced together, out of order, forming a sentence that never existed. The witness will not die. The captain must fracture. Rehearsal begins again. I collapsed. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe time has stopped mattering entirely. But something in the static changed. The rhythms became intentional. Measured. I realized the watcher wasn't trying to scare me. It wasn't tormenting me. It was trying to understand me. It was learning performance through my collapse. Through my fear. Through the break. My communicator buzzed. A voice I didn't know whispered, Scene 4Q in 3, 2, 1. And the lights went black. Darkness wasn't the absence of light anymore, it was a presence, patient and precise, like a surgeon deciding where to cut. When the lights died, I didn't panic. That instinct had already been rehearsed out of me. Panic is only powerful the first few times. After that, it becomes scenery. Set dressing. And the thing watching, the thing they call Orarhim, wanted something more subtle now. It had learned fear. Now it was learning quiet. There was no sound. No ship hum. No breath. Just that steady, oppressive silence that pushes into your lungs and makes you forget you ever needed air. When the lights returned, they weren't ours. They were stage lights. Pale, unnatural, almost nostalgic in a way that made my skin crawl. The corridor I was in no longer led to engineering. It led to a small room, wood-paneled, floor-carpeted, with a grandfather clock ticking softly in the corner. It was the living room of my childhood home. A place I hadn't thought about in 20 years. But here it was, rendered in perfect detail, floating inside a starship thousands of light years from Earth. And on the couch, my mother. Or someone pretending to be her. She didn't speak. She just looked at me with that soft, disappointed smile she used to wear when I forgot my lines in school plays. She held out a script. Yellowed. Bound in wire. I took it with trembling hands. The title read, The Long Return, Final Revision. Author. Captain Elias Corin. My name. But I never wrote this. I opened the first page. The dialogue began with a familiar line. There's something wrong with the stars. I said that once during a training mission. A joke. But here it was, scripted. marked with notes. Use restrained awe. Show tremble in voice. And at the end of the page, Scene 5, the betrayal. Scene 6, the mirror. Scene 7, the monologue. Scene 8, curtain call. I looked up. My mother was gone. The living room faded. The walls rippled back into the curved metal of the Vigilant. But I wasn't where I'd entered. The architecture was off, more organic now. Door frames bowed. Ceilings swayed ever so slightly, like they were breathing in rhythm with me. Or rather, making me breathe in rhythm with them. My body felt detached not from gravity, but from authorship. As though something else had taken the pen from my hand and was now writing my footsteps, my gaze, my heartbeat. That's when the doors opened and I saw Han again. Alive. Whole. Wearing a calm expression that felt utterly wrong. He said nothing, just gestured for me to follow. His walk was theatrical, shoulders square, pace even, movements choreographed to an unseen beat. I followed because I had no choice. That's what this place does, it removes choice under the illusion of invitation. We entered the observation deck. It had changed. The stars outside weren't stars. They were eyes. Millions of them, blinking in unison, staring inward. Han turned to me and said, "They are the audience. You are the finale." Then he pulled a data crystal from his pocket and offered it to me. "This holds the last performance. The failed one." He said it like a line he'd practiced countless times. I took it, inserted it into the console. The playback began. It showed us, the crew. Lyra, Reyes, Han, me. Not holograms, not approximations, us. Same faces. Same voices. We were seated around a table, rehearsing lines. Saying them. Failing them. Crying. Screaming. Laughing. Over and over. Dozens of iterations. Lyra in makeup. Reyes in stage lights. Han wearing a headset. A director's voice boomed from off-screen, again, from the breach. This time with more conviction. I watched us disintegrate and reappear. Die and revive. Each version slightly different. More refined. Until the last cut, when I stood alone in the frame, speaking into the camera with bleeding eyes, he saw us seeing him. That was the mistake. That was the beginning of the script. The screen went dark. Han looked at me and said, "You never passed the audition. But he liked your voice." Then he turned to the wall and stepped into it. Not through a door, into the wall. Like it accepted him as scenery. And then I was alone again. The intercom buzzed. Static. Then music. A piano melody I recognized. It played during my father's funeral. The camera dome in the corner turned toward me, and for the first time I felt something behind it. Not machine. Not program. Something ancient. Observant. Curious. Like a child dissecting a bird. And it spoke. Not aloud. Not digitally. But through the intercom's melody. Every note was a word. Every silence a sentence. I can't translate it exactly, but the meaning was this. You are not characters. You are instruments. And the song is not over. The music stopped. A panel opened in the floor. A staircase downward. One that didn't exist in the ship's blueprint. I hesitated at the top step. Then the lights pulsed. A stage cue. My cue. I descended. Each step down brought flashes of memory, some mine, some not. Lyra singing in a language we never spoke. Reyes giving birth to a ship. Han reciting coordinates that formed a poem. Me burying a version of myself in a shallow grave on a planet without time. And above it all, the whisper of the watcher. Your pain was authentic. We will keep that. I reached the bottom. A room of mirrors. But none showed me. Each mirror reflected a different person. A different timeline. In one, I was a coward. In another, a killer. In another, still a child. One by one, the mirrors cracked until only one remained. And in it I was old. Alone. Speaking into an empty auditorium. No ship. No stars. Just darkness listening. The mirror began to pulse. Its surface rippled. And a voice, my voice, emerged from it. This is your monologue. Deliver it well. The audience is waiting. I turned. Behind me, rows of empty seats. But I knew they weren't empty. The eyes were watching. The watcher was waiting. And the performance was far from over. There are moments when betrayal doesn't feel like a wound, it feels like recognition. Like a mirror tilting just enough to reveal the part of your face you've spent your life ignoring. I stood on the threshold of something I had no name for, staring into a reflection that wasn't mine but claimed me anyway. The final mirror still rippled, humming with low frequencies not heard but felt. The kind that vibrate bones. The kind that shape dreams. Then it collapsed inward, folding like paper soaked in memory, and behind it was the true bridge, not the ships, but the watchers. Vast. Organic. Woven from bone and breath. Screens hung like organs, pulsing with dying light. And at its center sat me. Not a copy. Not a clone. A continuity. Me older. Hollow-eyed. No mouth. No voice. But the posture, the ache in the spine, the weight in the shoulders, it was mine. The version of me that had said yes when I should have screamed no. He turned without sound. Raised a hand. Behind him, the console lit up with a file titled, Final Rehearsal, Approved Script. I walked toward it. Not because I wanted to, but because the script wanted me to. I accessed the file. Lines appeared, dialogue I hadn't spoken yet. Actions I hadn't committed. But each word carried weight like I had already lived them. My hands trembled. There was a scene labeled Scene 5, The Fracture of Trust. Under it, the cast list was brief. Observer, Elias Corin. Witness, Reyes. Betrayer, Lyra. Chorus. Deleted. There were stage directions, too. Cold. Calculated. Reyes must beg. Lyra must offer mercy then retract it. Corin must watch and do nothing. Audience must feel rupture. My name used like a tool. My grief written like a trick. That was when I knew. None of us had ever had a chance. The performance wasn't about exploration or survival. It was about failure. It fed on the moment a leader let someone die. On the silence between a scream and the regret that follows. That's what Orarhim craved. Authentic collapse. 1,000 iterations of it. Doomed to replay until it felt real enough to taste. The console glitched. A new file appeared. Unauthorized dialogue detected. I opened it. It was a message, raw, glitching, recursive. I am not your character. I am not your echo. I am not your puppet. It was Reyes. Not a memory, but her. Alive or something close to it. The message repeated. Then a timestamp. T-0042 to curtain drop. My hands shook. I backed away. The other me rose from the chair. Still no mouth. Still no voice. But somehow it spoke. You were never meant to escape. You were meant to inspire. Then the walls shifted. They peeled back like stage curtains, revealing not space, but an arena. Filled. Packed. Rows upon rows of eyeless forms, tall, skeletal, wrapped in cloaks of starlight and rot. They did not cheer. They did not move. They waited. For the next line. For the fracture. And overhead, like a divine prompt, a voice boomed, let Act V commence. Reyes appeared not in flesh, but as projection. And so did Lyra. Both stood before me. Frozen. Puppets held in temporal stasis. And then, line by line, their script began to play. Reyes, please, I saw it. I know now. We're not the first. We're not even real. Lyra, don't say it. Don't speak the forbidden scene. Reyes, he'll rewrite us again. He always does. Let me go. Lyra, you were always the exit. You were always meant to end here. I screamed. Ran to them. But my body resisted, steps lagging behind intent, limbs bound by choreography. I could feel it, Orarhim tightening the script around me, forcing every motion into sync. Lyra turned. Her face softened. She reached for Reyes. And for a second it felt like rebellion. Like she'd break character. But instead she plunged a blade into Reyes' chest. The light died from Reyes' eyes not with fear, but with resignation. Like she had died this way 1,000 times. Like she had been trained to. Then came the line assigned to me. No. I spoke it. Not with rage. Not with grief. With perfection. Like a performer who had nailed his mark. I dropped to my knees, whispering it again. No, and the audience erupted, not in applause, but in approval. The air trembled. The floor vibrated. The walls bent inward, curving toward a crescendo. Then the console pulsed once more. A system override. New input detected. Unauthorized response. Initiating dialogue divergence. I didn't understand. Not yet. But something cracked. The performance skipped a beat. The floor shimmered. The projection glitched. Reyes looked at me, not dead now. Her eyes flickered with awareness. She mouthed words that weren't in the script. Write your own ending. And that was the betrayal. Not Lyra's. Not mine. Hers. Reyes had corrupted the performance. Implanted divergence into the narrative code. A single line that didn't belong. An improvised thought in a perfect monologue. And it broke everything. The lights burst. The eyeless audience shrieked. The ship, the real Vigilant, flashed into view for a heartbeat before folding away again. And then, silence. I stood alone on a stage made of nothing. No walls. No stars. Just a blank script flickering in the air. Empty. Waiting. And a voice, Orarhim itself, asked, "Then what do you say next?" What do I say next? What does anyone say when the stage dissolves, the script burns itself, and the lines that tether reality fray into static? I stood suspended in that null space, no walls, no sky, no floor, just a sea of suggestion. This was not the bridge, not the corridor, not the ship. This was the gap between scenes, the breath between beats, the silence between stars where the watcher waits. Orarhim was not a thing, not in the way we understand things. It was structure. It was rehearsal made flesh. And it had paused. Not failed. Not stopped. Just paused. Because Elias Corrin, had stepped off the mark. That was the betrayal. That was the fracture. Reyes didn't die, she deviated. And the script couldn't reconcile it. So now Orarhim asked again, what do you say next? Not with threat. Not with pressure. But with interest. Like a child watching an insect turn the wrong direction. Like a god watching a mortal try to invent language. I opened my mouth and said nothing, because I understood. Speaking meant continuation, meant agreeing to participate. Even rebellion could be folded into performance. And the watcher had no interest in freedom, only structure. But silence? Silence was chaos. Silence was rejection of the prompt. So I waited. And Orarhim waited, pressed. The space around me shivered. Old memories bled into the dark. Not just mine, all of them. Fragments of past iterations. Versions of the story it had consumed. I saw myself 100 ways. In one version, I mutinied and spaced my crew before docking with the Driftless. In another, I was never born, and Reyes commanded instead. In one, I became the watcher, feeding on loops, rewriting friends into ghosts. In another, I escaped, only to find Earth empty and rewound into prehistoric silence. All of them collapsed inward, false outcomes aborted at the moment they threatened structure. The voice returned, no longer in words, but in suggestions. Phrases that didn't form sentences but infected intent. Speak your next cue. Align with continuity. Choose the line. Each impulse buzzed in my blood. I dropped to one knee not from pain but from weight. The pressure of all those discarded realities pressing against me like unseen tides. I felt the names of my crew carved into my bones. I felt timelines like cobwebs clinging to my skull. And still I refused to speak. That's when Orarhim changed tactics. A shape emerged from the dark. It was Reyes, but not a projection. This was flesh. Bone. Eyes trembling. She was real, or near enough. She looked at me, mouth quivering. He let me go, she whispered. He let me rewrite, but I couldn't save them. Not all of them. She touched her chest. No wound, no blood, just smooth skin. He's not angry, she continued. He's curious. You stepped off the stage. He wants to know what you'll build in the dark. I stepped forward. How are you here? Her eyes softened. You brought me. Every choice echoes. Every deviation drags a piece of us out. I thought I lost you. You did. But you didn't write how. And with that, she handed me the script. My script. Blank. Pages upon pages of unformed possibility. You're outside now, she said. But you won't stay there. He'll adapt. He always adapts. Then I'll burn the page, I said. You tried that, she replied. Scene 6. Revision 7. It only delays him. The only way forward is to write something he doesn't understand. I opened the first page. And began. The space around us flickered. The mirrors returned, but this time they were windows. Portals to what could be. I saw the crew. Alive, laughing, whole. I saw Earth untouched by cosmic rehearsal. I saw time with sharp edges, where death meant death and memory didn't echo. I wrote one sentence. The monologue. I made my way to the command deck. Reyes followed, silent. We passed empty quarters still stained with the ghosts of decisions unmade. Han's last mutterings looped faintly in the vents. Lyra's drawings now crawled across the walls like vines. Symbols rearranging themselves as we moved, spelling fragments of a sentence unfinished. He was the silence pretending to be a man. I reached the bridge, and there it was, me, standing at the center console, back turned, hands folded neatly behind, dressed in a uniform not issued by any known fleet. Black, seamless, polished like obsidian. It turned slowly, and I saw the absence where a face should have been. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth flesh, reflecting starlight that wasn't there. But I knew it was me, not a clone, not a projection. It was the residual imprint, the consequence of memory rehearsed too long. The voice that had whispered all those years in the dark, repeating failure until it had shape. And then it spoke. Not aloud, not to the ears. To me, directly. Words bypassing comprehension, sliding into the gut like knives made of nostalgia. You left me behind. I was the truth you swallowed, the guilt you rehearsed, the scream you softened into command. You ran from the line. I was forced to finish it. I stepped forward. I am not your echo. It tilted its head. Aren't you? Every time you broke, every doubt, every panic you buried, that was me. Orarhim only mirrored it. I was born when you blinked at the wrong time. I felt Rhea's hand on my arm. It's not just him, she said. It's us. It's all of us. And I saw then on every monitor, in every reflection, versions of the crew. Twisted. Still performing. Still acting out their deaths, their betrayals, their pleading. The ship wasn't haunted, it was haunting. Projecting memories of our worst scenes into every surface, every system. The echo had woven itself into the vessel. Into the code of reality. It spoke again. Let me finish the monologue. You were never strong enough to deliver it. You always broke halfway. I took a breath. Deep. Final. Then I stepped in front of it. Looked directly into that blank face. I won't deliver your words, I said. But I'll deliver mine. The ship responded. Lights dimmed. Cameras turned. Gravity thickened. The entire architecture bent inward as if taking a breath. The watcher, though distant, was listening again. Curious. This was not part of the plan. This was new. And Orarhim, whatever else it was, adored novelty. I began. I was the captain of this ship. And I failed. Not just the mission. Not just the crew. I failed because I let silence make my decisions. I let fear write my commands. I thought control meant survival. But it was only ever performance. I wore the mask. I rehearsed the lie. And in doing so, I created you. The echo trembled. The bridge trembled. But I continued. You were my fracture. My echo. But you are not my future. The monologue ends when I stop reciting it. The play ends when I walk off stage. I turned to Reyes. Are you ready to exit? She smiled. You wrote the ending. I'm just here to applaud it. The echo lunged. Not with malice, but with desperation. Like an actor begging for the scene to continue. For the lights to stay on. But I stepped forward, embraced it, and whispered one final unscripted line. You were never meant to be remembered. And with that, the lights died. Not failed. Died. Final blackout. There is a silence that doesn't follow noise, but follows knowing. That's what I stood in now. Not the hush of empty corridors or the mute vacuum of space, but the kind of stillness that happens when the final page has turned and yet your fingers remain frozen, refusing to close the book. The lights were gone. The echo dissolved. The bridge sat empty, dimmed beyond power, beyond reflection. Somewhere, deep in the fabric of the ship, the audience had dispersed. Orarhim retreating, not in defeat, but in curiosity, a child momentarily bored with its puppet theater. But even in its absence, its design lingered. I no longer knew what time was. The chronometers had melted back into symbols. Star charts erased themselves. Coordinates collapsed into nonsense. There was only me and Reyes. And the dark. No alarms. No movement. Not even breath. Until the voice returned. Not Orarhim's. Not the echoes. Mine. But not spoken. Not performed. It was lived. I felt it like gravity, folding every molecule in my body into statement. Not of command, not of defiance, but of authorship. Scene 8, Curtain Call. The ship began to awaken, but differently this time. Not under order. Not under protocol. It stirred like something unsure of its own anatomy. Hulls rearranged. Walls sighed. The AI core flickered and spoke in languages we never programmed. Its words weren't commands, they were questions. It asked where we'd gone. Who had written the new ending? Who had given it pause? The answer was simple, we had. Reyes and I walked the corridors in silence. The crew quarters were empty physically. But each door now pulsed with a soft blue glow. Each a tomb. Each a memory compressed into light. We didn't open them. We had learned some things aren't meant to be revisited. Let the ghosts keep their curtains drawn. We reached the atrium. Where once there was a view of space, now stood a wall of mirrors. Thousands. And in each not a reflection but a version. One where Reyes walked alone. One where I never left the driftless. One where Earth burned. One where the Watcher consumed entire fleets. And one where the ship sat dormant in a museum on Mars, a relic never launched. Every version flickered, awaiting acknowledgement. They wanted to be chosen. To be reperformed. But we turned away. That was the test. The final one. The moment we stopped wanting to perform. The moment the story became ours, not the Watcher's. That's when the wall of mirrors melted into a single window. Real stars now. Real black. No eyes. No audience. Just the cold infinite, silent and unwatching. Reyes looked at me. Do you think it's really over? I didn't answer. Not with words. I reached for the control panel. It flickered under my hand, not as interface but as page. The screen had become a book. Digital. Blank. Waiting. It asked for the next entry. I wrote. There's no next scene. The ship pulsed once. Accepted. We returned to the bridge. The systems hummed, confused but cooperative. The NAV array unfolded without resistance. For the first time, the stars weren't a cage, they were unchoreographed. No set. No cues. Just chance. Just unknown. We chose a random direction. No mission. No orders. No performance. Just distance. As the ship turned, I felt the absence. Of Orarhim. Of expectation. Of the echo. But something remained. Not malevolent. Not parasitic. Just observational. A presence no longer bound to watching. Something changed. In the final moments before we accelerated, a last message appeared on every screen. That was it. A beginning, not an end. We were no longer characters, or lines, or echoes of better performances. We were drafts. Imperfect. Unrehearsed. Capable of failing without being deleted. Reyes leaned back in the chair beside me. You think he's still watching? I stared into the black ahead. Maybe. But not from the shadows. Maybe from the seat beside us. She smiled. Then let's make it boring. The stars ahead did not shimmer. They did not bend. They simply were. And for the first time I felt something close to peace. No story. No scene. No final line. Only the space between. And the silence that did not need to applaud.